I would like to introduce Sue Rizzo to discuss the state of the fisc.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Chairman Joyce and county legislators. I'm here to present the annual State of the Fisc for year-end 2020 results. I pre-recorded my presentation and will answer any questions after the presentation. Thank you. Hello, I'm Susan Rizzo, your Albany County Comptroller. I'm here to deliver Albany County's annual State of the Fisc. I'm continuing the annual tradition and will discuss the 2020 financial results. As a newly elected Comptroller, 2020 was my first year in office. During my first year, the county was hit with an unprecedented pandemic. We have lost so many. I would like to extend my deepest condolences to the families and friends that have lost loved ones in this once-in-a-century pandemic. The county's first responders and other frontline workers have been on the front line helping county residents for over a year throughout the pandemic. My job, along with my team, was behind the scenes to make sure that frontline workers had the necessary resources to do their jobs. We worked to continue approving payroll and paying the county's bills, ensuring that the many services that the Albany County supports would continue. In my first year, I had the financial experience and wherewithal to accomplish these goals. I will be discussing the 2020 year-end financial results, the 2021 progress so far, and looking forward. In 2020, I hit the ground running. There was lots to do during an unprecedented economic year. Let's start with the 2020 financial results. The required New York State annual financial report was due May 1st. This annual financial report, referred to as the AUD or the AFR, is a report that was filed on time, again, for the second time. This was a great accomplishment by my accounting team. Also, there were additional hurdles this year that we had to overcome, including steady state and federal updates that directly impacted the county's financials. As you can see on slide 4, the county's revised budget was $753.5 million. Both the county's actual revenue and expenses came in below budget. Unfortunately, revenues were 8.5% below budget, and expenses could only be controlled by 6.3% against the original budget, therefore leaving a deficit. Slide 5 compares 2019's actual results to 2020 actuals. As you can see, the general fund revenue was down $40.6 million or 7%. This was primarily due to sales tax revenue not materializing during the pandemic. Even though the first quarter showed an increase in sales tax revenues, after March 2020, once the pandemic hit, sales tax revenue for the county was down $12 million, 7% by year end. To help mitigate the loss in revenue, steps were taken to control expenses, including establishing a committee to fill for all new hires, re-examining and refunding a portion of the county's debt, and responsibly analyzing new capital projects with the administration during a pandemic. The result was borrowing less for new capital projects. Unfortunately, the decrease in revenues outpaced the decrease in county's expenses, which declined by only 4.3%. This resulted in a deficit of $15.5 million. As you can see on slide 6, the 2020 fund balance is now $55.2 million. Fund balance is an accounting term. It is essentially the accumulation of annual surpluses, or money the county has built up for future use. There was a $13.6 million decrease in fund balance, largely due to the decline in sales tax revenue. On a positive note, the debt reserve went up by $19 million, from $17 million to $36 million. Debt reserve is cash set aside that can be used to pay the principal and interest on the county's annual debt payments. The county's increased reserves is an important metric that the credit rating agencies will view positively. Another positive to recognize is a chart on slide 7, identifying the long-term debt comparison by year. I'd like to point out in 2020, the overall long-term debt decreased by $35.2 million to $296.7 million, an 11% decrease. This was the result of responsible borrowing of only $4.1 million of new debt for capital projects during a pandemic and the refunding of $11 million of the county's outstanding debt. To put things in perspective, as I mentioned, the debt reserve increased by $19 million as we closed out completed capital projects and cleaned up the books. Even though there was a decrease in fund balance by $13.6 million, the county had ample fund balance to weather the financial storm caused by the pandemic. It should be noted, the fund balance decrease would have been $5.6 million. However, the county opted to leave $8 million of excess funding in its medical reserve. County Executive McCoy deserves credit for building up the county's fund balance over the past 9 years, more than double from the $23 million when he entered office. In 2020, revenue-related factors were driven by net sales tax, which declined by $12 million. During the pandemic, many people turned to online shopping and restaurant delivery and pickup. There were significant lost revenues related to dining and other entertainment venues. Unfortunately, dining and event-driven sales tax is not recoverable, like retail-driven sales tax. On slide 9, note that hotel occupancy tax also decreased significantly from $8.1 million in 2019 to $4.2 million in 2020. The recovery from the effects of the pandemic is ongoing. Next, I would like to discuss Shaker Place Rehabilitation and Nursing Center, the county-operated nursing home. In 2020, the team at Shaker Place completed its historic $80 million renovation that transformed it into a state-of-the-art facility. Obviously, there were many additional pandemic-related expenses that were unanticipated. We expect that approximately $2 million of these expenses will be reimbursed by FEMA. Unfortunately, the pandemic also limited Shaker Place's ability to accept new residences. Additionally, many people that were forced to work from home chose to also become caregivers to aging relatives. We anticipate that census, the occupancy, will increase going forward, driven by the best facility available in the area. The Comptroller's Office is taking steps to provide cash flow relief to Shaker Place. I will discuss this further as part of my 2021 goals. Next, I would like to speak about our 2021 progress so far and trends to keep an eye on. Albany County will receive $59.3 million in direct federal aid as part of President Biden's American Rescue Plan. Half has been received already, and the remainder will be received within the next 12 months. The use of the stimulus money is approved by the legislature based on federal guidance, including covering lost revenues and pandemic-related expenses. I strongly recommend the use for the lost revenue is imperative as we may have a shortfall at year-end again. I bring this key recommendation to your attention. It is essential that the existing operating cash flow needs of the county are met within the allowable categories before increased spending is identified. At the end of 2020, in order to meet cash flow needs, the county proactively borrowed $40 million via a tax anticipation note. Simply put, in December 2020, we ran out of cash in the general fund. The good thing is that we were able to borrow at an extremely low rate, 0.25%, and we took advantage of prepayment discounts on some payments, including the county's annual pension payment, therefore saving nearly $250,000 after our borrowing cost. Net sales tax through May has already seen a bump year over year by approximately $3 million. We are trending in a positive direction from this time last year. Additionally, Mortgage tax should continue to show increases, and hotel occupancy tax should also increase now that the pandemic has slowed. Slide 13 summarizes a few of our 2020 achievements. I've already discussed the county's debt and debt reserve, but I would like to highlight the controlled expenses within the Comptroller's office. In 2020, our office was vigilant about spending, which resulted in finishing the year $300,000 under budget in my department alone. The Comptroller's office alone achieved the age-old goal. We were on time and under budget. Slide 14 highlights additional achievements in 2020. S&P reaffirmed the county's stellar AA credit rating at a stable outlook, whereas the other municipalities were downgraded. Just prior to the pandemic, we maximized the county's return on investments by working with the Department of Management and Budget to invest in higher-yielding, risk-free investments. The graph on slide 15 illustrates the county's cash flow within the general fund. Even with the federal stimulus funds, as of April 2021, the Department of Management and Budget projected a negative cash flow by the end of this year. We will continue to monitor this, but we stress, do not earmark additional appropriations against the stimulus this year. The money should be used to offset lost revenues. We're not out of the woods yet. Next, I would like to look forward into the next half of 2021 and discuss my goals as the Albany County Comptroller. Sales tax update. Slide 17 provides a summary of the county's first quarter sales tax revenues. Although the first quarter, which ended March 31st, showed a decrease of $1.4 million, sales tax receipts have picked up the pace in May with a 40% increase from the same period last year. As vaccination levels increase, this positive trend should continue, but we should still proceed with caution. Slide 18 highlights some signs of a local economic recovery. Travel through the airport has picked up. Sales tax is trending in the right direction. COVID restrictions for in-person dining and entertainment venues are being lifted, which should help the sales tax revenues significantly. Goals. As I alluded to earlier, we are attempting to provide cash flow relief to the nursing home. The Comptroller's Office is currently working with our fiscal advisor, the State Comptroller, and both houses of the state legislature to refund $27.2 million of Shaker Place debt. This is debt related to the completed renovation. We are working to correct the repayment period of this debt to 20 years from its current 11-year term. A 20-year term will match the Medicaid reimbursement rate and provide an initial annual cash flow relief of approximately $1.9 million. Also, we are working with the Sheriff's Department to audit 911 revenues. By state law, the telephone customers are charged 35 cents per month on their phone bill. We are analyzing county's emergency 911 center expenses to justify a surcharge increase to fully cover expenses allowable by New York state law. We feel we could justify an increase from only 35 cents to $1 per month to fully cover 911 related expenses. Finally, my team is implementing an accounts receivable module in the current accounting system to better track revenues. Currently, tracking receivables is decentralized and done at the department level. By centralizing this function, the county can accurately track monies due and collect these in a more timely manner. In conclusion, I will leave you with the following. Albany County's strong financial position was invaluable to get through the pandemic. The Comptroller's Office will continue to work with various county departments to address any financial issues that could be improved. However, we need to remain vigilant and make financially sound decisions going forward until the new normal is clear. This includes being conservative with allocating federal stimulus monies. This concludes my presentation of the state of the fisc. Thank you for your attention. See you next year.
So driving.
Well, thank you. If you have any questions, I'd like to entertain any questions at this point. And if you want to email them to me, I'd be happy to answer them at a later time.
I have a question.
Oh.
Oh, wait.
Do I address that, or does Andrew Joyce? I don't know. Mark?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Susan. I saw Sharon Ward passed a note. Can we get these slides, because you went awful fast? There's an awful lot of numbers there.
Oh, you were supposed to have gotten the slides ahead of time. I thought that those were sent. I
Okay,
apologize if they
No, but
haven't.
that's okay. I want to see them because I had a lot of questions, and thanks for really staying on top of things. One of the questions I have, we had a terrible year, and yet it wouldn't appear it was so dramatic, given that we still have $55 million in our fund balance. So that tells me we're sitting on a lot of money that's available if we need it. One thing I didn't understand, you said in December of 2020, we were out of cash. But how could that be if we had a $55 million fund balance that's still apparently still intact?
No, I didn't hear anything.
What you must realize is that fund balance is an accounting term. Our revenue is a peaks and valley. If you can look at my, there's a slide which you guys don't have. I thought the ledge sent it to you, but on page 15, it shows you how when we get our sales tax income in, we then have a peak in our revenue. But that money is not fluid sitting there untouchable. We use it. We dip into our fund balance and we use the money throughout the year. Because at the end of December, we have large payments due for retirement and our health care. That's why we pretty much run out of cash at the end of the year. I don't think we should consider fund balance necessarily cash that remains whole. It's cash that we use.
Oh, it's fluid then.
Very fluid. And the chart on page 15, when you see the presentation, which I apologize, I thought it was sent around, that you'll see where the peaks and valleys are.
You said something. You said you recommend that we don't spend the stimulus money on just expenditures, but spend it to replace lost revenue. Could you go into that a little bit more? Because that's critical, it seems to me.
Right. So Dave Riley has put together an analysis that it was over 20 million, maybe like 26 to 29 million that we had lost revenues. And Dave might be able to speak to that more, but those lost revenues have is what the concern with our deficit. So that's what the surplus right now in the short term could be used for. In the long term, because the deficit can, or the surplus can be used over a 2 to 3 year period. I don't think we should just overspend with new programs when we have to worry about the current programs that we have, because the revenue that was coming in from the state was not as fluid.
So we're getting 60 million, but 30 million this year and 30 million next year. Is that how this?
Correct, approximately. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if we increase spending, then we're going to have that burden next year.
Correct.
And we're not going to be getting $30 million in stimulus. One more thing, because I know there's a lot of questions. So are you recommending that we increase this smartphone tax from 35 cents to $1 in order to increase revenue for that, or clarify that for me if you would?
911 costs?
Yes.
So I've been working with Sheriff regarding the expenditure for our 911. We're short about $4 million. So basically, we don't recoup the revenue to cover our 911 costs. And the law changed that we can only recoup 40%, and now we can recoup 100%. And other municipalities do charge the dollar. But so we're recommending, and we're going through, it's all going to be presented. We just did the audit, and we're working with Sheriff to pursue doing the 35 cents to $1. It'll be about a $7 increase per year for telephone wireless usage.
Yeah, I think that's something we could discuss, because if you ever check out your phone bill, there's taxes all over the place on that. And what they originally
Correct.
quote you as the price is not really where the actual cost is.
Correct. So it would be
Thanks.
instead of
Thanks, Susan,
35
very much.
cents.
I
it would be
appreciate it.
$1. Okay. Any other questions? Paul?
Sue, you great presentation, by the way. I also look forward to seeing the slides so that we can really kind of drill down a little bit. You talked about increasing the excess medical reserve by $8 million. What's the purpose of that?
Okay, we're not increasing it. It's already there. So in 2020, because we're self-insured, we received more cash because people weren't able to do their maintenance of their doctors, like mammograms, colonoscopies, things of that nature. So we didn't spend as much money. Now, we could have taken that money and just put it in the reserve, but we didn't. We just, we still have a medical reserve set aside. When the auditors, when we review this with the auditors may want us to put it in our fund balance. But at this time, we just left it because we anticipate people are going to spend that money this year to catch up with all their maintenance of their medical expenses.
Okay, so in actuality,
It's cash.
it is cash that is above and beyond the $55.2 million fund balance.
Correct.
Right, it's just reallocated into a separate line.
We have a
Of the
separate.
$55.2 million fund balance, how much is unencumbered?
Unencumbered. 1 second. And he'll tell me, because he has it right in front of him, and it can't take him more than a minute. Oh, for the love of God.
Unencumbered, 38.
38 million.
38 is unassigned.
38 million is unassigned.
Okay, so really, we have a $38 million fund balance. How did the tax anticipation notes figure into your cash flow? And over what period of time are they going to be paid back?
They've already been paid back. The problem with when we borrowed the money, the $40 million, we needed it immediately in December. So when we
Okay,
paid the retirement for about 19 million, I think as far as the general fund, we were able to get a 1% discount. So actually we saved $250,000 by borrowing the money. It didn't cost us anything. So we already paid the money back, but we needed the money pretty much December, January, and then we got sales tax income. So then we started to become whole to pay our bills.
okay. My last point is sort of a echo chamber of Mark's concern. A tax increase for 911. You know, I know the state collects $300 million under this program, and they only distribute to counties something like $80 million. So the state, in essence, is skimming, skimming is a bad word. They're holding on to $220 million of the tax that's collected. I anticipate that before we increase from 30 cents to $1 and increase cell phone revenues or bills per line, that there should be an effort to get the state to distribute a more equitable portion of what it is collecting for the 911 system. The sheriff has long been on record for that. So
Okay, no, I'll
I'd
look
hate-
into that.
I would hate to see us talk to Craig about that. He's been very vocal on that, is we don't get our fair share. We get less than a third of what is being taken by all the providers, and the state is maintaining the money for their purposes. So I would hate to see us say, well, that's too bad, and do a 300% increase of a local tax. Just a personal observation.
No, I'll look into it, but I just wanted you all to realize that it's not a tax. It's actually a fee that is paid, and it's not per call, it's just 35 cents to $1, it's about $7 a year. So I just wanted to clarify the magnitude of that number, but I'll definitely look at the state distribution and I'll talk to Sheriff Apple.
But if you have a cell phone plan with 8 lines on it, it's it's a significant sum of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lockhart?
Yes, thank you, Madam Controller. Thanks for your presentation. I appreciate you being here tonight. Just a quick question. You talked about sales tax and that it had decreased. Do you know what Albany County took in on internet sales tax? I can never seem to get an answer on how that works, how it comes back to the community.
Well, there is sales tax on internet. I'd have to
Right.
get a breakdown from that specifically, but we know we do collect sales tax on internet. I'd have to get a breakdown from the state.
I've asked before about this at different levels of government. The state takes it in, then would divide it to us, right? I mean, that's how it would come in, just like they do with a regular sales tax. But do they make a determination how much is sales tax and how much is internet sales tax? Distinction, they separate it?
I assume they have that, but I'd have to check into it. I know that we do get sales tax on internet. We have gone through, there's different internet sales tax, but I'd have to check into it. I do not know off the top of my head the specific calculation for internet sales tax and what percentage is from our allocation.
Because I believe that had gone up, correct? As far as I knew.
Correct.
Maybe you could get back to me on that topic when
But
that.
it did go, yes, it did go up because when retail went down, internet went up, correct?
Right, but we don't really know the numbers on that.
I didn't get the spreadsheet, no.
Could you get back to me on it?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bill?
Yeah, hi, Sue. 2 questions. One is, and maybe others, maybe this has already been discussed at some point and I missed it, but last time we had a significant discussion about budget issues. We might have been focused on the Times Union Center, but we were talking about the 20% holdback by the state on a lot of funds that they would normally be sending our way. And you didn't comment on that. And is that money still being held back? Do we know that we're going to get it?
We received it.
We received it, and going forward, there is no more withholding of 20% by the state?
Correct. So we received 15% initially, and then they released the other 5%. So we've been made whole on that. And I think that was before March, and it's reflected in our numbers.
Okay, good. Thank you. The other question I have is a little bit more speculative, I guess. I appreciate your comments about being careful about how we spend the stimulus money, given that we're not really out of the woods yet in terms of the impacts from COVID. But I guess I did want to kind of raise the question of there may well be significant federal money coming our way beyond the initial stimulus money, potentially for infrastructure investment and other things that I know the White House wants to do. We don't know whether that's actually going to come to pass or not yet, but there are possibly going to be opportunities where we have to spend some money to leverage federal funds. And I just kind of want to make sure we are trying to anticipate those opportunities so that if we, for example, had an opportunity for a big investment in infrastructure, and that would be significantly matched by federal money, we'd be in a position to respond, in a timely way to take advantage of those opportunities when they come. I know right now I happen to be working with some of Dan McCoy's folks on some energy related things that, sort of fall into that category where if we do certain things, we get reimbursements. And I just want to make sure we don't miss those opportunities. Yes, let's be careful with our expenditures, but also let's keep our eyes on the horizon for these opportunities where there might be significant federal funds available to match investments that we might make.
Oh, absolutely. The difference is the federal stimulus money that we're receiving, the 59 million, that's, I'm just saying proceed with caution. Obviously, we're going to be spending that money. I just want to make sure that cash is,
Oh, she got muted.
I didn't even move. I don't know how that happened. I don't know where it got muted. The stimulus money will be spent. I'm just saying it's a slow spend in the beginning. If we get federal money for infrastructure, that's separate. And management and budget is, and the legislators are actually earmarked to spend that money. I'm not holding back anything regarding infrastructure. We also have bonds that we bond for our current programs. And I did talk to the administration about the green bond and understand about energy savings and things of that nature. But by no means are we going to not maximize on receiving federal match money. It's two different separate things.
Yeah.
Separate and
Good,
distinct.
good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Because I only have half a screen, so I don't know how I even tell. So is that all the questions? Because I can't see hands.
Yes, I also don't see any hands.
Okay, so I appreciate your time. I apologize. I thought the slides were out today, but we'll get them to you.
Sue, we did email them. They do have
Okay.
them now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.